Hello, hello. Welcome to Free Spirit. We're going to do something a little bit different today. We are going to have a guest on our show, on our podcast, and her name is Barbara Elmer. She is a gifted psychic, medium, and Reiki master. The podcast topic for today is going to be on Easter, and we're kind of going to go into it and look at, actually, before we even started talking about the podcast, I had spoken to Jessie and Barbara, and she kind of brought up this good point of mind, body, and soul. So we're going to try and implement that into the podcast today. So Jessie, if you want to go ahead and hit on the resurrection, the reason for Easter.
So with the resurrection, and for those that don't know, was the death of Jesus and the resurrection, where after 3 days in the tomb, he had risen from the dead, and pretty significant events. And I'm going to try to keep it as short as I can, so that way everyone kind of gets their portion into on this episode. But ultimately, we're recognizing that, in our last episode about the crucifixion, that we kind of just briefly discussed, well, not briefly, but had discussed. And, we have Jesus now, he's in the tomb and buried for 3 days. And, we had the Roman guards there, and they're watching over the tomb. And there's a lot of significant factors that are, that I'm not going to go too in detail with, but anyways, the tomb was, bursted open. Roman guards were asleep. And the resurrection of Jesus, where he became alive. And the interesting part about the whole thing was that the women were the first ones to, I guess they were the first ones to notice about the tomb was empty. And this is pretty significant back then because, women were kind of second-class citizens, and their testimonies wouldn't have really held in a court back then. Like, it was kind of, they really didn't have any say. So for women to be the first witnesses of this was pretty powerful because, if these women were to lie, I mean, the punishment was death. Like, a lot of these things was like punishable by death. Even the Roman soldiers that, fell into this trance were soldiers that knew that if they fell asleep on post, they would be put to death as well. So there's a lot of significant, significant events that take place that solidify. You have all these different people saying that, the tomb is empty and Jesus is alive. Excuse me. And so to make up the same story, it's kind of, it wouldn't make sense for them to all lie at once because they knew that the penalty was death. Well, anyway, so we have Jesus walking around, and during, I think, 40 days of the resurrection, about more than 500 people Jesus had come to. I mean, he sat down with them, he talked to them, he had breakfast with them, with these disciples. They had what's his name? Paul. I think Paul, he was the one that was trying to catch the disciples, and he was actually killing Christians. And then when he encountered Jesus, he stopped. And so, here we have a man that was for, destruction of Christianity. And then when Jesus comes in, it changes his whole world. So here we have another account of a man who changed his whole realm for what he witnessed and knew that the consequences of him changing it would be death as well. So pretty interesting that that we have all these witnesses and testimonies about, seeing Jesus, talking to Jesus, eating with Jesus, and then, all of a sudden vanishing at any moment, just gone. So hopefully that kind of summed it up.
Yeah, I mean, so that's really kind of a powerful example of coming back and telling us we don't die. Our bodies may, but our soul continues.
So I was actually going to hit on that. I wanted to back up a little bit and kind of go through the whole resurrection, kind of step by step, because you did hit a lot of good points that we can all kind of tie into. Um, so Jesus was put in the tomb, and then when the girls found him, it was an empty tomb. So, well, one question that I would think is, where's his body?
Right.
So that's a little question that I have, but also, if he was able to be seen after the fact by other disciples and stuff like that, how was he able to be seen if his body was not there?
So his body had to be seen by people for us to understand that. He could not come around as a soul. So this had to be a very powerful, say, entrance. It had to be a powerful statement. I'm here. I'm not gone. And that's how people would recognize him,
Right.
is with that body.
Right. And even Thomas, one of the disciples, because they called him the doubting Thomas, because he always questioned, like, oh, you didn't see Jesus, like, come on now.
Right.
And then Jesus appeared to him. And the beauty about this story was that Jesus had holes in his hands from being nailed to the cross, and he told Thomas, here I am. Put your finger through my hand so that you may know that I'm real.
That's good, because even now, as much as we have faith, we still, because we can't tangibly see it, put our hands on it, we kind of doubt too. I mean, especially when we're going through rough times. So that's a good point with the doubting.
Yes. So actually, I was going to kind of go into that. So nowadays, even Christians doubt that there's a spiritual realm, and people don't understand that if you're Christian, it even says it in the Bible where, Jesus appeared to many people. I think it was like up to 500 people or something like that. And, in order for him to just show up after everyone clearly saw him die on the cross, mm-hmm. is proof, in the Bible and not in the Bible, that there is an afterlife, or there is a soul, there is a spirit. So if you're a Christian, or, if you're just somebody who doesn't believe in the afterlife, or that your soul is still living, this kind of just proves it, or, it's more evidence of that is possible, and that is a reality.
Well, and the work I do is I'm literally an evidential medium. So that means I bring validation or evidence, bits and pieces of who that person was as a person. If they were like happy-go-lucky kind of person, their energy will come through that way. It doesn't mean that they're in that realm, but it means this, just like Jesus did. I have to show you this body for you to believe that this is me.
Yeah, it's one of those things a lot of people like to see to believe,
right.
in thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of those evidence, of it. So good point.
And then I remember too, Barbara, back this is years ago, when Jesus first appeared to me, and I had shared it with you.
Yes.
And oh my God, I couldn't believe what I saw. So I had to confirm it through you, because I was like, all right, was this real? Or, and so, we do doubt, because I think it's just normal to doubt, because we yes. are, we're just doubting creatures. We just want to make sure that we're not misled, and, because, your heart, mind, all that is affected when you're misled. So, but anyways, yeah, I was just remembering that, and I thought that was interesting.
Well, you were vibrationally open to it. Your heart was pure and ready, and again, a lot of people do experience this, and not necessarily Jesus, but it could be a lot of other deities, or things like Buddha. But you were ready, and you had a message. And I think not everybody gets these. So we kind of live in a world of, we need proof. We want to know. We have to, but like you said, it's our human nature.
Right.
to doubt, because we live in a world that we're not treated so well most of the time.
Right.
So I do have a question for you, Barbara. So you are a psychic and you are a medium. So you deal with that realm a lot. So if we look into the resurrection story and, Jesus's body wasn't there, I have some, I guess, theories of why it wasn't there. But could you explain how all these people were able to see him? Because I think in the Bible it says that, his body was dead, but his spirit was brought to life, or his spirit was life. Could you explain like exactly how you see spirit, or how you could interpret that for people?
So I would never claim to have all the answers. I can only give you my experience. And for the resurrection, it's just showing us that there are miracles. He had to show himself in that particular body because people knew him in that body as a tangible proof that, hey, this is me. I'm not dead. When I talk to spirit and I talk to people that have crossed over, I get information from all of my senses. I see things, I hear things. I'm mostly empathic. I've actually tasted things in a reading. So they give me bits and pieces of information of who that person was. I interpret that and then pass it along. So, for me, there's no doubt that there's something else out there. There's just no doubt that people, their bodies die, but their spirit never dies. So the connection is, I think Jesus' lesson there was, we don't die. And he wanted people to know this. And taking it a little bit further, he wants us to know that we're like him in so many stories in the Bible. We can heal, we can manifest, we can make our life whatever we want. But it all has to do with our vibration and how we feed our vibration. And I think he showed a wonderful example when he, fed the people with was it a basket of fish? Yeah. He fed hundreds or thousands, I can't remember, of people. So he was an example of what is possible for us.
Right. Yeah. Because it was a basket, and even the disciples were like, hold on, there's only one basket for 5,000 people.
Right.
And he lifted the basket and prayed, and everyone ate. It was about, I want to say 5,000 people in this little basket. So pretty interesting. And also what's fascinating too is that during this time, Jesus was actually prophesizing his own resurrection before he had died. And then you go back, I want to say 700 years from the Bible, it was prophesied that, Jesus was going to basically be crucified and rise again. So it was like you have all these documents of past, of past leaders, I guess, or I don't know what you want to call them, prophesizing that Jesus was going to come and die for us, for the sins of the world, and then rise again. And so I thought that was pretty interesting that he knew that these things had to happen.
So I'm going to go into it just on a scientific kind of level. I know I've kind of touched on this with you guys before, but just kind of my take of how everything kind of happened, which is not right or wrong or anything. So this is kind of just a theory of mine. So I believe that Jesus was crucified, and then he was wrapped up, put into the tomb. Tomb was closed. I think we spoke on the last podcast about the Shroud of Turin and all that stuff. So if you guys want to learn more about that, listen to the last podcast. But the way certain things appear to me, like going into more research of certain things, is I feel like because it was the women who found the tomb that I don't, what was his name? Cyprus.
I think so.
The high priest who put him to death and all that stuff and was conspiring against him. I do believe that Cyprus allowed them to take his body from the tomb. And I know a lot of people are probably like, oh, like freaking out right now for the words I'm saying, but in just looking at the history and just the relics and everything that we found and just kind of like the timeline, to me, it kind of feels like he realized what he had done just because of how everything got affected, like the temples fell, all this stuff. So I feel like he realized what he had done and then allowed them to do a proper ritual with the body. So that way, because normally the families would take the body and wrap them up and have them in a family tomb. So I feel like he kind of allowed them to take the body and bring it to the tomb. And yeah, that's another story because it's like a lot more evidence. But
well, I think traditionally the mother and the women would prepare the body.
yes. So,
Yeah.
and I do feel like they did, after the 3 days or even before then, well, I would say after the 3 days, they did take the body and prepare it for the family tomb and stuff like that. They actually did find, I forget the town, but they found what they believed to be Jesus's ossuary, and it was next to an ossuary that had Maria on it.
Mhm.
So, I mean, to me, that's the feeling that I get, that, his name was on it, and it was son of Joseph, and it said Jesus on it, and then the ossuary next to it said Maria, and I guess there was like a whole bunch of other ones in there, but for the fact that those two were together kind of symbolizes to me that somehow they got the body out of there, and that's how the tomb was kind of gone. But that doesn't discredit the fact that he is still alive in spirit. So I think a lot of people, question like, where did the body go, kind of thing. That's kind of my take on it. Like, I don't think it just vanished, like,
Right.
So
Right.
I do feel like they were able to get his body, do a proper wrapping, and put it in their family tomb. And then, yes, his spirit came back to life. And it was actually, if I, correct me if I'm wrong, but his body was basically like human in a way, because he was able to eat and drink and do all these things after he had passed away. After everyone witnessed him dying on the cross and everything, he was still able to show up to all these people and in human form. And that's kind of what Jesse touched on was, he was like, touch my holes, that it is me. So, how would you explain that aspect of it?
Well, and I think too, that was a perfect example of he was using that body as a vessel because people knew that body. So he had to explain to them, your spirit doesn't die. And he had to use that body because they would recognize him.
Yeah, and there's there's a lot of questions in regards to it, and I think this is where faith comes in, and then manifesting those that faith based into Jesus, and then Jesus revealing the truth, kind of like what he did with me. Where he presented himself to me and I was in meditation, like I was kind of meditating, praying, and then boom, here he is. So, pretty interesting. He didn't do the whole hand thing with me. That'd have been awesome. I think if he would have said, hey, hey, Jesse, but I'd have been like, heck yeah, let me, but it was really quick. And since then I've had, I don't even know how many encounters with him. So many times that he's revealed himself to me. He's even, I remember one time and it was always in prayer, and he came to me in light. So he didn't come to me like in flesh. He came to me like just a pure vessel of light. And so, I'm just trying to think of some other avenues that he approached me, but yeah, I mean, with the whole tomb thing, I'm sure there was a ton of questions when it first that happened. with everyone involved, like, where's his body at? And then they're hearing rumors that he's walking around. And so it was probably chaotic there and back then. And then you have, like I was saying, they have women were the first ones to witness it. And, back then women, like I was telling women's opinion didn't matter. It was like, oh, you're a woman, you have no right to speak here. So it was kind of like very interesting how it all folded. And it was, yeah, and we're and with I've never heard of that with the the Pharisees taking the body, because I think they were conspiring with the Romans to make sure that the disciples didn't take the body, because that's what they were fearful of, the resurrection. And so that's why they had sealed it, and they put ropes and stuff around it, and I think they had put like some Roman seal on it, so that way if anyone tampered with it, they knew that something was tampered with, and they couldn't. The Romans couldn't figure out how the ropes were cut, because when they examined them, they were exploded. Like, they weren't like with a fresh sword or a knife. It was like they just blew off. And so it was just so many of these factors that were going against someone taking it, that's why they kind of they didn't go that route, because they knew something, like Barbara was saying, like a miracle happened, like the unexplained happened. No one could explain what was happening. But anyways, that's my take. But
that was just a theory of mine of something happened with the body. Yes, it could be a miracle. I was just kind of thinking that maybe someone had taken it, and then kind of that's why they found it in that other tomb. But like I said, just a theory of mine.
Well, in my experience of doing my work for so many years, your soul can be at different places at the same time. So we're not limited to our three-dimensional world. We can't conceive of what this soul can do. It can be at many places at the same time.
Yes, and that's actually proven scientifically with quantum, which I think is really neat. There's, I forget his name, but one scientist, he kind of, and actually this kind of more ties into like the afterlife and reincarnation. He explained our soul as like an atom kind of thing, or if you want to look at it as like a TV broadcasting, right? So everyone's got cable, everyone's got like the show that they're watching, and our bodies are the TVs. So, when your TV dies, we call it dead, but that object is dead, but the programming is still going on, if that makes sense.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, and then he explained how, just because that TV's dead, that programming is still going on. And then once you get once an embryo comes or something like that, then that's when you buy a new TV, you plug it in, and then that signal goes right back to it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Emoto is one of those, and it's something if people want to look into messages in water, because we're mostly made of water. And he was a scientist, and he factually proved through our thoughts, our intentions, our words, or even our tone can change the molecular structure of the water within ourselves.
Yeah, we actually talked about that a couple of weeks ago on one of our podcasts. So but it's a great point.
Yeah.
But I do think that the main reason that we had to experience the whole resurrection was because Jesus kept saying, I'm going to build this temple in 3 days. But it wasn't his body that was the temple. It was the whole aspect of it. It was his body that's what he considers our temple, but it was his soul. It was his whole being that was the temple. And that, we have to take care of that and, take care of our temple, basically.
Right. And the higher your vibration, the closer you are to the source, whether you call that Jesus, God, Buddha, or anything that you believe in that's a higher source than you. It brings you closer, and it helps you to manifest the life that you want. I think people lose hope, and they get into a lower vibration, and they get kind of stuck there. And so by the example of Jesus coming back, the possibilities of what we can do.
Yeah, I do think that a lot of people don't understand their personal power and how they can express it, or, like you said, manifesting. When you raise your vibration to this certain point, you're pretty much unstoppable and you can manifest anything. And, a lot of people don't understand that they have that power. I think it's partially because, people are always trying to suppress each other. That way they can, control each other. They don't want you to know your full potential. So a lot of people today, when you start saying stuff like that, they're like, oh, you're kind of crazy, or ghosts don't exist and all this stuff. But, if a lot of people are like in the seeing, believing, but, it's one of those things you can't see, sound waves, but they exist. You can't see,
Right.
radiation from the sun, but you're still getting sunburnt, so a lot of people, you can't say that there's no radiation. It exists.
Well,
So it's just on a
also,
different dimension kind of thing.
right. And I think cultural, the culture that you're in, the community that you're in, each area has a vibration. I know when you travel and you feel different in different places, so it is definitely vibrational and everybody adds to that vibration.
I think we're going to have a separate podcast on vibrations. I think it's on our list. So
Okay.
might have to have you back as a guest.
Okay,
Yeah,
sounds good.
with that researcher that you were talking about earlier, Nikki, about the TV, that was that the research, but but anyways, there was a doctor who, I don't know if it was the early 1900s, but he would actually spend time with people dying, and he had their bodies like on a scale. And as soon as they,
yeah. And then it was when the soul left, it was like, sorry, I'm like jumping in.
no, yeah,
it was
it
like
actually
lighter.
a less than an ounce.
Yeah, like every person, it was like it happened to everybody, and for some reason it was shunned down because of fear of. For some reason, the truth, people are fearful of the truth, and so he was shut down, and nothing more came of it. But he actually proved that that we indeed something is lost, and I believe it to be the soul that leaving.
Right. And these things have been studied for centuries. I mean, this is not new. You can really look back on history and really look into things. They want to call it new age or different things, but none of this stuff is new.
Yeah,
It's
been around for forever.
Yeah.
But the reason why it's not so, well known is because back in the day, they didn't. So there was a lot of issues with people getting upset with religion. So they basically told scientists and philosophers to be like, only study the physical realm, leave the spiritual realm to religion. So
like
that's
doctors.
why, So that's why now, the most science that we have is on physical, tangible things. But there has been so many more, studies of people. There is one guy, there's a doctor who started doing studies of when people pass over and when they're declared dead on the table, and they can see what's going on with them. So, he started doing experiments where he's drawing pictures on the floor, because when they see themselves, are from the top. So he started drawing like random pictures on the floor to see if the people, when they died, could pick up that image. And then it was kind of more like a solidification that yes, they were there, they were looking on top. And he had proved that after you die, your brain shuts down within like 20 seconds or something like that. But these people were remembering up until about 5 minutes after they were declared dead. So it's pretty interesting. There's a lot more studies, but it's just not brought to the public because I don't know if it's like frowned upon, or they're just afraid. They don't want, it's truthful and no one wants to know. They don't want the truth to come out or something. I'm not sure.
Well, I think a lot of it, again, is cultural. I think in different countries, they're a little more open to psychic work or energy work. I mean, like China and Eastern countries like this, they will they go to a place where they're just herbs, and that's how they heal themselves. Or they'll go to the doctor and he will do some reflexology, or he'll look into what's going on into your life. Our Western medicine, like you said, was you just study the body, and they don't find that connection, but it's a huge connection.
Yeah. And I think that somehow we veered off from, we know how to heal the physical, but the spiritual, I've learned that only God could heal that. Because nothing that I can see of this world will make you whole, like 100% happy.
That's good, but we're not separate from God. We're
right.
all together. And if you're not touching that part of you, you're exactly right. You have to touch that soul part of you.
Right. Oh, yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. We kind of got cut off and we lost Jesse a little bit. So what were we talking about again? How everything's kind of connected.
Everything's connected. I think we were talking a little bit about the cultural beliefs of people. I mean, obviously, the way you grow up and what you're exposed to kind of gives you a view of what you think God, universe, spirit is about. But if you look at all these cultures and people, we all really, truly believe the same thing, basically.
Yeah, just bits and pieces of the full picture pretty much. And that's kind of why I think I don't follow religion per se, is because I do pretty much put everyone's religion into this one bubble, that because it is all connected and stuff like that. So I think that's how I kind of do it. And that's why I like learning about other cultures, because they might know something that I don't, and then it just kind of opens my mind a little bit more. So
well, and it's basic, really. It's about love. Jesus was teaching love, forgiveness, being kind to each other. And these things don't sound like they're hard, but when we have different viewpoints and the way we really truly have been trained for our beliefs, this is where we clash. But if you really look at the whole, it is basically about love.
Mm-hmm. So going back to the cultural aspect of it, there's a lot of other cultures that the young children and the older of the tribes will actually pair up and spend the most time with each other. And, when, us, we're kind of like, oh, that doesn't really make sense. Why they've got so many years in between them, stuff like that. But when you look at it, a lot of they're just like, because the young children just came from the spiritual world, and the older children or the older people are about to go into the spiritual world. So they actually have the most in common, which is pretty interesting.
I love that. And the knowledge to pass on to these younger children.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a perfect pairing. Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So reincarnation. So obviously, that tribe believes in reincarnation. I forget what his name is, but he kind of pretty much said that we're all stardust. That's where we come from. Like, it's been, studied that we're all stardust. Oh, it looks like Jesse's about to come back on. Dun, 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 maybe.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're good. We were wondering what happened. We just kind of started going. I was just actually going to go on to, there's, studies showing that we're made actually from stardust. And there was just one little like atom and molecule that kind of came on to, that created the world or the earth and all that stuff. And they say it's the same as, chlorophyll in plants, which I think is extremely interesting. And then over the years, that chlorophyll with the sun and everything, it eventually developed like our ozone layer. And it's kind of the same as like with people. You might think that you're a small person and, in this life, but the more you keep going, you could create that ozone layer, which I think is pretty neat. And then, eventually people came about because of the air and stuff. I don't know where I'm going with this, but plants anyway. Plants is a good symbol of life and beginnings. And, a lot of cultures as well, they believe in nature, and a lot of them have a lot of, connection with nature?
Well, we are part of nature. I mean, I don't know, you have a stressful day, you're sitting in your office and you walk outside, it literally will just bring you into a peaceful place. So we are definitely, we're all connected. It's just an illusion that we're separate. Just like that piece of soul that would be the higher universe, God, whoever you want to call that, is in every one of us. So yeah, we are definitely connected to the plants and the trees and the flowers. And that's why you feel so good in spring.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it made me wonder, like, because I've met some, I don't know if they're called shaman or like Native American religious leaders, and they have like spirit animals.
Yes.
And there was this one, his name is Bear Paul, and I had met him when I was younger, and I didn't know this, and I was like, man, why does it smell like a wet animal? Like I'd get whiffs of this animal. When he was around, I was like, man, so I'd like discreetly trying to smell him, like, is it him? And it wasn't. And come to find out, he had this spirit animal, and I smelled him. It was really weird, and I was like, I couldn't figure it out. And so I guess my question would be, so I'm assuming that spirit or animals have spirits too, and do the trees and the other things have spirits.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love that you brought up spirit animals, because each one of us has like guides, angels, a spirit animal that we primarily work with. And then when we go through certain things in our life or a certain cycle in our life, we can call in other spirit animals. For instance, the lion would be, you wouldn't call that lion in for courage. This is funny, but you could call in a skunk if you want people to stay away, kind of thing.
So that's cool.
Their attributes you can call in when you need them, but primarily we have one set spirit animal, but we can call in others.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned the lion, because I had told Nikki a couple of weeks ago, when I was praying, Jesus had appeared to me, and then his face turned into a lion.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I couldn't correlate the two, and I had to ask someone else that was like, give prophetic messages, kind of like how you do. And he's like, oh, that's the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the second coming of Jesus. And so I was like, wow. And I saw it firsthand that Jesus revealed that to me. And it was really weird, because I've never seen a lion, and it was like him and his face turned into one, and it was roaring.
That's awesome, really. I mean, so it's telling you, you've got that strength. You've got Jesus behind you. You've got this.
I said that. Sorry. I get my confirmation. There you go.
she's like, I'm claiming that.
I already told you that.
There you go.
Sorry.
So, I mean, so we do have a whole bunch of realms that are, that are unseen. And like you say, well, sometimes they're unseen. Jesse's seeing them, but I feel that we have so much at our fingertips. We just need to access it. Ask them to join us in this journey on this particular lifetime. The lion would be, if that lion came into you like that, Jesse, it could be, I'm facing some of my fears, but I have this behind me.
Oh yeah, I don't know what it did to me, but it was a good thing.
Powerful, yeah.
I feel like I have that power, like it just intensified my spiritual walk, and I feel it. I am not the same. Like I feel that that roar,
right?
And I want to keep it, so I'm trying to keep it. I don't, sometimes things fade, because we forget, or it's like like a significant event in your life. It's awesome, while
But
it's
it's
still
like
current.
a gift. It's a gift. And so sometimes when we have a gift or somebody gives us that gift, we're thrilled, we use it, when we need it. And, it's always in there as your tool.
Right, right.
So it'll always be there for you. I mean, it might not be as bright and crazy as it was at first.
Right,
But
right.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely a good experience.
You just got to put the work into it because, a lot of people, they're probably listening to you like, oh, he got a vision or something like that, thinking that you're a little loopy there. But, going back to the Bible and stuff like that, how it, he said, whatever I can do, you can do. So, if you are believing in all this stuff, a lot of people want miracles, but they don't realize that they have to put in some work.
Right.
Everyone wants all the credit and everything at the end, but nobody wants to do the work. So
That's true. I mean,
Jesse,
you talk about,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead. You talk about like your assistants on a different dimension. Like, I love that you said that you have to put the work in, but they're always at our fingertips. They're not going anywhere, like angels. People are like, I don't know if I believe in angels. Well, the angels are all over the Bible. Angels are just another vessel for us to connect to. But, you can't just live an whatever you want to say, holy life and expect to get, that connection, because you have to be up on that vibration.
Mm-hmm. And there's so many tools out there that are available to us. People just aren't taking advantage of all of them or, practicing certain things. People are just lazy nowadays, I guess. And, like I was going to say, Jesse puts in the work, he prays, he does a lot more than a lot of people. And, that to me, he is so devoted. And that is why I think God is giving him these visions and stuff like that. So,
when I first met him, he just struck me as somebody spiritual to a level of, I'm going to help people. I'm going to be that one to take these messages and share them and help, like, really, honestly, humanity. And you're right. You can't just wake up and do your thing and forget about it. You have to stay in that connection. And he does. He works very hard for that ever since the first day I've known him.
Same.
Oh yeah. Barbara's both you guys helped me out so much. And I know more Barbara so because I've known her longer,
Well, okay. I'll just get forgetting that. That's fine.
But, and I thank you both because you guys did a lot, and through you guys I've learned a lot too, and a lot of it has to do with just taking the time to listen, and I think people said this, that's why God gave you 2 ears and one mouth. One you could close, the other ones you can't. Yeah. So that resonated with me. Just take the time to listen, and I just applied it. I said, hey, But,
I love that you say that, because when your soul is quiet, your body, your mind is quiet, you're able to receive.
Right.
And you obviously will take the time to meditate and pray. That's why you're receiving. If we're in this busy world, go, 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 what can I do next? You're going to miss it.
Right.
And I love that you say that, because that's exactly right. You have to be quiet.
Yeah. And it's always worked for me the most is when it's almost like I hear that passage where Jesus says, be still, or God says, be still, because we need to be still, because we need to take care of ourselves as well.
Right.
But anyways.
I mean, that's one of those things that goes on in just today's world is just everyone is so overly busy. And now, like with social media and all that stuff, how many times are you like on your phone just kind of scrolling, and then you're like, oh, wow, like an hour went by and stuff like that.
Right.
That is, to me, it's kind of like one of those tools that the enemy, will call it, is, trying to distract you from your true being and your true potential.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're just geared for that, because if you didn't have a phone, you didn't have everything on your, it's almost like you're forced to live that lifestyle to a degree, because everybody else is, and you have to somewhat keep up. I mean, how you approach it and how you monitor that is important.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. Because, growing up, like, I remember when cell phones came out and caller ID and, the internet started, So it was just, it's interesting how things have changed so much.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you know,
I
and the
sorry,
connective, oh, I'm sorry,
no, you're
but
good.
to be connected on a level of being a personal connection. You know, it used to be you knew all your neighbors, you would always have a community, you would, you know, play with the kids, and everybody would come together. So that, I think, is really missing with people. We're so disconnected in the most connected time in history.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I saw a picture, like, and we'll just say a lower level energy is isolating people,
Yes,
because together he cannot conquer you, but isolated he could definitely manipulate you.
absolutely.
And I think this is why we see more and more, because of, oh wow, that was an awesome vision I had, guy. I wish I could just download it and throw it on the computer, but it was just like people just intentionally being isolated that way is easier to hit one than two.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're definitely a lot stronger together. And especially, I mean, if you look back at the past couple of years, you know, depression rates have just like skyrocketed. And, you know, people are just feeling so alone because they weren't able to see their families. They weren't allowed to travel. They had to stay in a box. They had to stay in a box. They had to stay in their houses. They couldn't, you know, really make that personal connection. But that's what we are as beings. You know, we thrive to be interacting and, you know, being with people. We're not meant to be alone.
Exactly. And we are connected spiritually. We are all one energy. So that affects us all. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I know we kind of went off topic of Easter, but I mean, still, wherever the wind takes us. I know Barbara has to get going. We definitely appreciate you, you know, being a guest on our show, and we're definitely going to have you back because there's a lot of things that, you know, a lot of our topics that hit your area of expertise. So I
So
definitely
much
appreciate
fun.
you.
Thank you guys. So much fun. I had a blast. So thank you.
Awesome.
You guys have a good day.
You
See
too.
ya. All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.